And you mentioned the issue with belief. Can you explain a little bit about that? Like, what is the problem with believing?
Yeah, I mean, you see, I never had any belief really. When I was young, I would notice that people would be believing things that weren't really true. And to me, it was like obvious because it's like, well, you can see that that's not true because if you just look from what is immediately here, you can see you don't need a belief for that, you know? You don't need a belief. Belief is always something that's outside of what is immediate. You know, you have to imagine something, or it's something that's passed on through memory. So, I mean, even in the word belief is the word lie, you know. So there's some, essentially, belief is thought, and thought being limited cannot encapsulate, obviously, the unlimited, you know. It can't encapsulate the isness of something. And so it becomes like a lens. So every belief system is a lens, a certain filter. And if you look through that filter, then it only distorts the way things really are. So it's not possible to then be in contact with the way things really are, the way things naturally are. Everything becomes artificial. And this is kind of what I call the two sort of states, this sort of natural state or the artificial state. And the artificial state is made of the beliefs, which essentially is thought. A thought that is persistently thought over and over again and believed to be true, you know.
And that in
So
turn manifests things
then
you
in turn
say.
manifests,
Hmm.
yeah, powerful because, you know, the thought is what? The thought is energy. Even though we don't know what that is, we nobody knows what a thought is. They only know about thought. They only have knowledge about thought, but no one really knows what thought is itself. The moment that you think of thought, you have to create an image of thought, and then it's not thought. You know, so we can't get at it like that with all the belief systems. And so these become like a distortion, limitation, filter that manifests in ways that then only creates that which is more artificial in nature.
Do you feel like that's a problem we should be getting away from, or it just the way that we're supposed to exist here while in this realm?
You know, I mean, if we look at where thought came from, it's like right now we're speaking the English language, so we agree upon what certain words mean, and this gives us the ability to communicate, which is, of course, you know, a great thing.
Hmm.
But when we take that language to be the reality of what something is, it's like thought meanings. When we take these meanings of thought and impose them on what is natural, then we don't see that anymore. We don't see what is natural anymore. When really it is just a sound. It's just a sound vibration, but we're putting the meaning to it. If we were listening to somebody speaking Russian and we don't understand Russian, then all we're hearing in that moment is just sound, isn't it? Just
Right.
pure sounds. So what that shows us is that all thought, because what is thought is just words internalized. So all thought, all language, all words are just sounds that we've then put the meaning to, which we need. We need to function. We need it for to communicate. We need it to be able to understand how to access this call like we've done today. We need it for practical things. But when we take that knowledge to be what life essentially is, that's when all the problems then come. Because then you have all the belief systems, you've got all the philosophies then, which we've had throughout history. You've got all the religions, and people are, it then separates people from each other through those ideologies. No, my belief is right. No, my belief is right. And
Mhm.
then there is a fighting, obviously, of those two different belief systems.
Right.
And that you could say that that's what's caused all the wars on the planet. It's one person's belief versus another person's belief because they believe that what they believe is true. You know, so no, it is this way, and so then they'll fight to try to preserve and prove that belief. You know, rather than actually admitting, first asking the question, what do I really know? What do I truthfully know? To be honest about it. Most of us are not honest. We're not honest. We're not honest to say, I don't know. We think we know because we've been given this knowledge and it's been passed on to us. And we then hold on to those beliefs and that knowledge, and we're adamant that that is true. And then that only separates from life and separates from each other, and then you get all the problems that come, and then you get the unhappiness that people experience because of that, the suffering because of all this self-knowledge, this self-image that people have, an image of who somebody thinks that they are and what they think that others are and life is, you know.
And there's such a great attachment to those things, right? People become so attached that when somebody comes along with a different view or belief, it shakes them up so much that they can't deal with it, right? And then that causes more division and more issues.
Right, exactly, yeah. Rather than just admitting, what are the limitations of my understanding? Being honest about that. What can I really know to be true? We can only know the knowledge that we have. That's what knowledge is. It's a knowledge to rest on some knowing. To rest on some knowing. But anything that we think that we know is only knowledge. We can't know anything outside of that knowledge. The knowledge creates the experience of what we have and what we think we know. But life itself is not an experience. This is what I came to see, is life itself is not an experience. So it cannot be known, it cannot be understood. There is some other intelligence, a more natural, universal intelligence there that is not intellectual. It's not based on thought. It doesn't need thought. That body there, that organism there, is completely alive, and it's not trying to think. It doesn't need knowledge to be what it is, you know. Whereas through the artificial mind, it's trying to live through that knowledge, and by trying to live through that knowledge, it never can be natural. It becomes artificial. And so when I saw this very clearly, I saw that the whole of humanity has been constantly existing through this in this artificial state, because that's what's been passed on from generation to generation through philosophy after philosophy, belief after belief, religion after religion. Even what we call spiritual knowledge now, is still knowledge. You know, knowledge of dimensions, knowledge of planes of existence, knowledge of entities or whatever. It's still knowledge. What can you really know to be true? You know?
It's hard to know anything. Yeah. And I feel like the more I know, the less I know, right? There's an old saying like that. I really do feel that way. And I've developed this thing in the back of my head where I'm like, okay, I've studied all this, I've researched all this, but this could all be fake, could all be false. I don't really know at the end of the day. You know what I mean? I'm just kind of going with a framework that makes sense in the moment or in the time that I have.
That's exactly what happened here.
Uh-huh.
That's exactly what happened here, is that there was, well, firstly, my uncle, who was a spiritualist medium, who I used to have these deep conversations with, he said he channeled what they called, there was a few of them that channeled this entity called the old man. They used to call him the old man, and he used to impart certain teachings of wisdom. And one thing he said is what you said, which is, or similar to what you said, which is the more that you know, the less that you know. Or the more that you know, I think he also said, the more you know, the more questions you have.
Right.
And that's because the knowledge goes hand in hand with the questions. Because what is knowledge? Knowledge is that somebody's already come to a conclusion about something. So through that conclusion, thinking something is a certain way, questions come from the conclusion, because you can't really ask a question about something that you don't already have an idea about. So
Yeah.
they're connected together. So the more conclusions that you have, which is the knowledge that's been passed on, the questions will be related to that knowledge. And then you ask a question, and then if you get another answer and you come to another conclusion, it's only going to create more questions. So you
Right.
get stuck in this cycle of
Yeah.
questions and answers through the knowledge, and there's never any end to that. And
Yeah.
and so many of us get lost in that all of our life. And then what I recognized later on is that, after sort of doing that in my own way, as you were saying, looking at, well, what can I know to be true? Looking at this piece of knowledge and this theory and that theory and this philosophy and that philosophy, I suddenly realized I can't know any of it. How can I know any of it?
Yeah.